This is what a 55 to 59 Chevy Dash looks like. Now, this is more than likely what you see in your truck. Caveman took his tools to it to try to carve out a radio and did a horrible job. Don't worry about that. My name is David Welch. I'm here at Brothers Tech Center today to show you how to replace this. Now, the first thing I want to show you is on the back of the dash. Right here, there's a support. I want to make sure that you don't cut this support when you're cutting this piece out. And when we're placing this in here, we got to make sure that it's right on the money. So how we're going to do that is I'm going to clean this up, I'm going to paint this, then I'm actually going to bolt this on, then I'll go ahead and scribe it out. Let me show you what that looks like. Now, in order to be sure that the patch panel is going to come out nice and flat, I want to make sure that my dash is nice and flat first. If it's all beat up and it's pointing out bad or anything like that, I'm going to want to make sure that I get this flat first so that when I bolt on my patch panel, it's bolting on nice and flat and it's making my job easier. So I've got this looking good right here. I'll put my panel on. And then I'll just bolt it right in place to be sure it's not going to move around on me while I scribe it. So before I cut this out, let me give you a couple handy hints here. You're going to want to get all your tools lined up. Obviously, you're going to need to weld this back in. You're going to need to make sure that you've got a square so you can keep it all nice and flat. You're going to need miscellaneous cutting wheels, grinding wheels. You're going to need a die grinder, either electric or air. These are also great little sanders for when you're doing this kind of a thing. Doesn't build up a lot of heat. These are a great little thing to have right here. This is a patch panel clamp. And what you're going to do is you're going to use this to get your patch panel in nice and flat and even, and it's going to save you a lot of time and trouble. You can find these online, pretty inexpensive. Then you're just going to need some miscellaneous hoo-ha to get going there. Obviously, you're going to need good safety glasses too. So this whole job's going to take you 2, 3, 4 hours. The main thing is you don't want to build up a lot of heat. It's not necessarily this is hard to do and it's going to take a lot of time, but that you're going to need to take your time and not build up heat and not warp any of your metal right here. So let me get this guy scribed and cut out, and then we'll go to step number 3 or 4. All right, so remember now that brace is going underneath here and we don't want to cut that. When we got our cutting wheel, you don't want to take it and then just bury it all the way in there. We're going to cut and we're going to have this riding just the depth of the metal so we don't cut our beam. So there's some spot welds down here that are going to be holding onto this panel. What you do is you go ahead and you grind down and sand it a little bit. That'll generally make the spot welds stand out. Then you can either drill them out or you can just cut with a grinding wheel until they break loose. Alright, so I'm not going to lie, I cut this really good. Normally I have to clean it up a little bit before, but it's really nice. So if you do not have clean metal, you are not going to get a good weld. So go ahead and clean up all your edges, front and back, not only on your dash but on your patch panel. You see my bottom support right here? I'm going to take some channel locks. Put my patch panel right up here, get it lined up pretty decent, and then go ahead and clamp it in place so that I can get these clamps, my patch panel clamps, and I can get this on here and get everything nice and flat and even. I've got all my clamps on and they're nice and tight. I'm going to use my fingers to feel how nice and even everything is or not. And I'm going to make sure it is as even as possible before I start welding. Now here you'll notice that we've got a bit of a gap in here. You might want to think to yourself that you'd have your metal butted up against each other, but if you do that, when you weld, it may not penetrate, and when you grind off the weld, it break loose. So you want to have a little bit of gap in there for your weld to take hold. Don't get too hot. Make sure that you weld on one side, then you weld on the other side, then you give a little bit of time to cool down. You weld on one side, you weld on the other side, you give a little bit of time to cool down. Also, you want to make sure that you don't weld up the entire thing at once. Again, the heat, and then also you'd have to grind everything all at once, making more heat. So it's a couple of spot welds, you let it cool down, then you grind those off, and then you just keep on going until everything's all welded up. Now, because of the dash curvature here at the bottom can be different on a lot of different vehicles, just because of maybe what was manufactured in Oakland versus Detroit was a little bit different. So we're going to make sure that all of the areas that line up first are welded in nice and solid, and then if we have to mold this in down here, we can do it after this is solid. So after you get just a few spot welds in there, take your clamps back out, get your straight edge, double check everything, make sure it's looking good. If it's not, get your hammer and dolly and get it looking good before you keep on welding. Well, that's about it for this. You make sure you check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and check us out on YouTube, because I'm making these videos every single day for you to get your truck back on the road.